All right, hey guys, how's it going? So today's Torah portion is called Vayechi, right? So that means and he lived. So you remember our little vav here that means and? So that's and he lived. So and he lived. And it comes from Genesis 47:28. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt, right? And that verb there, the root is chaya, and it means to live, right? But it's really only live in like being alive type of sense. So you might recognize a couple of these words, like chayim, right? We get that word from chaya, and we get the word chai, which is really, this is the plural and this is the singular. They're pretty much the same thing. So, in fact, you probably have seen some of these little pendants that say chai on them. So it means life. I don't know if you've ever seen that. You didn't know what it was? That's what it is. I actually had somebody at another church tell me the other day, he showed me a funny picture. Somebody had one of these pendants listed on eBay. They didn't know what it was. They thought it was like some sort of animal, like little feet.
Oh, it looked like an animal.
No, no, that's not what that is. Okay, yeah. All right. So I call this breaking out of the English bubble, because, you know, different languages, they don't all harmonize exactly in their meanings of words. So sometimes English is kind of a problem and things just don't match up. So in English, you know, he hasn't died yet, he still lives. So that would be exactly what this verb chaya means, right? That's the same thing. When you say, where do we live, or we live in Florida, that's not exactly the verb chaya, even though the verse we have is Jacob lived in Egypt. It's not the same thing. This verse is saying more that he was alive there, as opposed to like living in Florida or whatever, because you'd use a Hebrew word that means more like to dwell or to reside, right? Now, how about these two verses? You've seen, you know, the just shall live by faith, or, you know, living according to the law, right? You know, in English, that sounds like, this wouldn't be the same Hebrew word chaya, because I said that wrong. In English, that sounds like, you know, this is how you have to behave or act in life,
like
right?
A negative thing.
But since it's the word chaya, it's more like having life from faith, or, you know, the Torah is giving life. It's not saying that you have to behave this way. So I'm just pointing that out. All right. So what about the word shalom then? Because what does shalom mean, right? What does shalom mean? Peace? Well, what's that? Okay. So it's translated peace, but that's not an exact like translation of it. That's like, it doesn't do it justice, in my opinion. So what is peace? If you look up peace in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, it'll say, you know, a state of tranquility and quiet, you know, freedom from disturbance, security, order, you know, freedom from disquieting, oppressive thoughts and emotion, harmony. Let's look at the word shalom, though. This verse has the word shalom in it. Any guess which word it is? It's the word health here in this verse. In this verse, it's also in this verse, and it's the word welfare. All right. Now, all Hebrew words go back to verbs, right? So, what would the verb of shalom be? Right? So, what do you think? Restore. Okay. So if you lose, you know, however many sheep, someone has to restore that, right? How about this one? No. Nuh-uh. It's the word pay. All right. So, you know, if you're gonna buy something, you're gonna buy a bag of apples. You take away something, you gotta restore however much that costs, right? All right, how about this one? Any guesses? No? Make it good. All right? So, you do something that causes harm, or loss, you have to, like, if something's, you restore it. So, going back to the word shalom, this was the verb shilam. That was the verb to restore or make whole. All right? You could compare it with other Hebrew words like the word shalem. And shalem is the word for whole or entire. And so our last word, shalom, peace, I would say restoration, or I like to say made wholeness is more like what shalom really means. And if you look it up in the Strongs, you could see, reciprocate in various ways. So now, an interesting place where you could see this play out is pray for the peace of Jerusalem, right? Sha'lu shalom Yerushalayim. It's not so much saying, let there be peace and quiet and tranquility, but, restore it.
Restoration.
In all the ways it could be restored.
Spiritual and physical.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay. Danny, you do me a favor? Can we midrash this a little bit? Can you go back to the beginning? I think there's something really profound there. You touched on it, but I want us to talk about it a little bit.
Let me just start it over.
Yeah.
Okay. Where at?
Go forward a little bit. And basically here, where you were comparing it to what it means to live versus basically the way every place that the Western translators translate this in the New Testament, they translate it like with the Torah, he who does it will live by it. Like you have to live by this.
Yeah, that's how you have to behave and act in life, right?
Yes. And a lot of those places, when you look at the Greek, it can be translated, will have life by it. Yeah. And so there's a huge, but just go forward a couple and just look at a couple of these. This part. And so it means, it's not where we dwell. And what's interesting about it is I'm not sure that as Westerners we even have that concept of life. Yeah. We just, we're breathing, that means we have life. And where do you live? In Florida. Exactly. And that is not what the Hebrew word means at all.
Exactly. Well, yeah, see, it's more parallels this word right here, but how often do we really say oh, he lives, Yeah. He I don't know. So.
Yeah, basically just, but it's way more than that to have the Torah, that the Torah is life. And he who does the law will have life by it. James, the book of James actually says that, but it gets translated just the sideways.
English is the problem.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's our English bubble.
English is the problem, and the problem is not only the English, it's the translators, but it's not. I don't like to use mistranslation because it sounds like they did it on purpose. They didn't. It's just that our Western perspective of what that word means is not what the biblical word means.
Exactly.
It's warped, and then on top of that, if the translator truly believes that the Torah has been done away with, then he's going to translate it even more forcefully. You got to live by this thing if you start doing this. But yet Deuteronomy 28, 29, 30 explain that it's the source of life. So, you had a question? Was it kind of along that line?
I did, but I didn't. There's a New Testament scripture that says, be in health.
Above all things, I pray that you be in health.
That you be in health.
It's probably this.
And I'm just wondering if...
There's... it would be really hard to tell because...
Yeah.
To prosper and be in health even as your soul prospers.
That's
So, it made sense that he's saying, behold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
So at the least, he could have been thinking that, even if he spoke it in Greek, which he may not have. But even then, if you translated it one of the shalom words, yeah. Well, you can't really do that because it's already in Greek. So you might could if you could find something parallel. It's hard to tell. But yeah, I think that whole thing with the wholeness, a wholeness as in, yeah, shalom is, I think we think of like peace, and that's the other one, is like we think of peace, especially our generations, as lack of war. Mm-hmm. And shalom is a place.
Yeah.
You know, it's a place of being.
Well, another thing in modern Hebrew, if you were to look up the word peace in like a Hebrew dictionary, you probably wouldn't see the word shalom. You'd actually see a different word that means like silence or quiet, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Cool.
You're welcome.